On July 7th, 2026, 4 days ago, something happened that most people outside the precious metals community have not yet heard about. Not a rumor, not a speculation. A documented, government-announced, officially launched event, the trial commencement of Hong Kong's new central clearing and settlement system for gold. Operated by the Hong Kong Precious Metals Central Clearing Company, a wholly government-owned entity, this system is explicitly designed to do something that has never been done in modern financial history: challenge London's decades-long dominance over global gold pricing. And the day before it launched, on July 6th, Hong Kong's US dollar gold futures trading hit an all-time record high, more than double the previous record set in 2022, 4 days ago. This is not a prediction. This is an event that has already begun. And the question that every person who holds gold and silver needs to be asking right now is not whether it matters. It is whether they are positioned to benefit from what it means. To understand why what happened 4 days ago in Hong Kong is potentially one of the most significant developments in precious metals markets in decades, you need to understand a piece of financial architecture that most people have never been told exists. And that, once you understand it, changes everything about how you think about the gold price you see quoted on your screen. The price of gold that the world uses, the price that central banks use to value their reserves, that mining companies use to plan their production, that every individual investor uses to decide whether their position is up or down, is set in London, twice a day, in an auction administered by an institution called the London Bullion Market Association. This is the LBMA gold price. It is, for practical purposes, the gold price, the benchmark against which everything else is measured. But here is what most people do not know about that price. It is set primarily in a paper market, a market where, according to published data, the overwhelming majority of contracts are settled in cash rather than through physical delivery of actual gold, a market where enormous volumes of gold exposure can change hands in a single day, the equivalent on some days of the entire world's annual gold mining production, without a single gold bar moving anywhere. This is not secret information. It is simply not widely understood, and the implication of it is profound. The price of gold has been set for decades by a market in which paper promises about gold rather than actual gold are the primary instrument of trading. And the question of whether that paper market accurately reflects the price that a market built around physical gold would produce is a question that a lot of serious gold market analysts have been asking for a long time, with increasingly pointed answers. What Hong Kong launched on July 7th is a direct challenge to that system, not by attacking the LBMA, by building something different. A clearing system connected to physical gold storage, linked by what the Hong Kong government calls Delivery Connect to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, the world's largest physical gold market, serving the world's largest gold consumer. A system with a new price ticker, the HAU price, designed to give Asian physical gold demand its own reference rate, rather than relying on the London benchmark set in a different time zone by a paper-dominated market. A system that is, in the words of one market analyst, building the plumbing for a gold market that does not need to wait for London or New York to tell it what gold is worth. This is a fundamental architectural shift in how the global gold price is determined, and the implications of that shift for the price of gold, and by extension, for the price of silver, which has historically moved in correlation with gold in major repricing events, are being discussed right now in trading rooms and research departments around the world, while most ordinary investors are still unaware that the event has occurred. Let me tell you a story that I think illuminates the specific historical moment we are in with unusual clarity. The year is 1944. The place is a resort hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Representatives from 44 nations have gathered to design the monetary architecture of the post-World War II world. And the central question they are debating, the question that will determine the financial framework of the next several decades, is deceptively simple. What is gold worth, and who gets to decide? The agreement they reach establishes the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, backed by gold at a fixed rate of $35 per ounce. London and New York become the centers of the global monetary system, and gold's price, fixed, managed, Western determined, becomes the anchor of that system. For 27 years, the world's monetary architecture rests on that anchor, and then, in 1971, Nixon closes the gold window. The anchor is removed. Gold, freed from its fixed dollar price, moves to find its true market level. Within a decade, it trades at over $850 an ounce, 24 times the Bretton Woods price. The people who held gold through the transition from the fixed price era to the free market era experienced one of the most dramatic asset appreciation events of the 20th century, not because they predicted Nixon's specific decision on a specific date, but because they understood that the structure of the system, The specific way that gold's price was being artificially constrained by an institutional arrangement that served the interests of the institutions managing it was not sustainable. And that, when the constraint was removed or overwhelmed, the price would find its true level. I'm not telling you that what Hong Kong launched 4 days ago is the precise equivalent of Nixon closing the gold window. The situations are different in important ways, but the structural question they raise is the same. Is the current gold price an accurate reflection of physical supply and demand across all the world's buyers and sellers? Or is it, like the Bretton Woods price, a reflection of a specific institutional arrangement that serves the interests of the institutions managing it? And that, as Asia's physical gold demand grows to represent an ever larger share of the total, is increasingly divergent from the price that a truly global, physical demand-driven gold market would produce? The Hong Kong system is the first serious institutional answer to that question. And the answer it is building toward is not academic. It is potentially priced in real-time consequences for the value of every ounce of gold and silver held by every investor who understands what is happening. Let me tell you specifically what the Hong Kong system does and why each element of it matters for gold's price trajectory. Because the launch announcement contains a lot of bureaucratic language, clearing systems, unallocated accounts, settlement infrastructure, that obscures the genuine significance of what is being built. I want to translate that language into the plain description of what it means for the price of gold. The first element is the central clearing and settlement infrastructure itself. Before this system existed, gold trading in Hong Kong was conducted over the counter. Buyer and seller had to handle their own settlement, which was expensive, slow, and operationally cumbersome. The new clearing system, operated by a government-owned entity with a comprehensive clearing rulebook and a central ledger, makes large-scale institutional gold trading in Hong Kong as operationally efficient as trading in London. This removes the friction that has historically directed institutional gold flows toward London rather than Hong Kong. As that friction is removed, gold flows that currently go to London may begin going to Hong Kong instead. And as Hong Kong's share of global gold trading grows, the Hong Kong price, rather than the London price, begins to reflect a larger portion of the world's physical gold demand. The second element is the delivery connect with the Shanghai Gold Exchange. This is perhaps the most strategically significant piece. The Shanghai Gold Exchange is China's primary gold trading venue, serving the world's largest gold consumer. China's gold demand, from its central bank, from its citizens, from its financial institutions, represents an enormous and growing share of total global gold demand. Until now, much of that demand has been priced against the London benchmark, which means that London's paper market has been setting the price for gold that Asian physical buyers are purchasing in quantities that London traders would find difficult to match. The Delivery Connect creates a direct pipeline between Hong Kong's new clearing system and Shanghai's physical gold market. It allows gold to flow between the two systems efficiently. And it means that the price being set in that connected Asian market increasingly reflects the price that the world's largest physical gold buyers are actually willing to pay, rather than the price derived from a paper market on the other side of the globe in a different time zone. The third element is the new HAU price ticker. This is easy to dismiss as administrative detail, but it is actually strategically important. Having a distinct, publicly available price reference for Hong Kong gold, a price that reflects trading in Asian hours in a market connected to physical delivery infrastructure and the world's largest physical demand base, is the beginning of an alternative global benchmark. It is the first step toward a world where the gold price is not a single number set in London, but a set of regionally weighted prices that together reflect the true global supply and demand for physical gold. And as the HAU price gains credibility and adoption, as more contracts, more central bank reserves, more investment products are priced against it, the influence of the London benchmark over global gold pricing diminishes. The fourth element is the explicit targeting of Belt and Road Initiative central banks. The Hong Kong government is actively courting the central banks of countries affiliated with China's Belt and Road Initiative, a group that spans dozens of countries across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. These are not small players. They collectively represent a significant portion of the world's central bank reserves, and if even a portion of them shift from pricing their gold against the LBMA benchmark to pricing it against the HAU price, the institutional foundation of London's pricing authority is fundamentally altered. This is not hypothetical. The Hong Kong system's expansion strategy explicitly targets this institutional base, and the central banks that participate in it are simultaneously building their gold reserves, buying physical gold at a rate that the World Gold Council has documented as historically unprecedented, in ways that make their participation in the HAU pricing ecosystem a natural extension of their existing strategic direction. I want to tell you about a figure whose perspective on this specific development I think is worth understanding, because it helps connect the institutional event of Hong Kong's launch to the practical implications for every individual investor who holds gold or silver. His name is Luke Groman, and he runs a macroeconomic research firm called Forest for the Trees that is respected among serious institutional investors for its analytical clarity about the intersection of monetary policy, dollar dynamics, and commodity markets. Groman has spent years making a publicly documented case that the global monetary system is in the process of transitioning, slowly and then suddenly, as these things always go, away from the dollar-centric, Western-dominated architecture of the post-Bretton Woods era toward a more multipolar arrangement in which multiple currencies and multiple reserve assets play significant roles. One of the things Groman has argued consistently is that gold is not simply a commodity. It is a monetary asset, the only monetary asset that no government owns by virtue of issuing it, that no counterparty can create by fiat, and that historically has served as the final settlement mechanism between nations when the paper promises circulating between them have exceeded the trust available to honor them. In a world transitioning away from a single dominant reserve currency, Groman has argued, the demand for this kind of neutral monetary settlement asset, the kind that does not belong to any government and that all governments can hold without creating a geopolitical debt to the issuer, is structurally growing, not as speculation, as a logical consequence of the geopolitical fragmentation that is reshaping global trade and finance. The Hong Kong system, launched 4 days ago, is one of the most concrete institutional expressions of the transition Groman has been describing. It is not a policy paper, it is operational infrastructure, a clearinghouse, a price ticker, a vault network, a connection to the world's largest physical gold market. It is the kind of infrastructure that, once built, tends to grow in use faster than the institutions that built the competing infrastructure can respond. And it is being built explicitly to serve the part of the world, Asia, the Belt and Road nations, the economies that are actively reducing their dollar exposure, where the demand for non-dollar settlement and non-Western gold pricing is growing fastest. The combination of Groman's macroeconomic framework and the specific infrastructure event of July 7th is, for the serious gold and silver investor, one of the most significant data points available right now, not to produce excitement, to produce understanding. And understanding, applied with the patient discipline of a serious investor, is what produces the outcomes that excitement alone cannot. Let me now give you the specific, actionable framework for how to respond to what Hong Kong's gold system launch means for your precious metals position. Because understanding the significance of an event and knowing what to do about it are two different things. And the gap between them, the translation from comprehension to action, is where most investors lose the benefit of the analysis they have done. The first action is to understand what you hold and what it is exposed to. If your gold exposure is primarily in paper instruments, ETFs, futures, pooled accounts, your position is priced against the London benchmark. In a world where the London benchmark increasingly diverges from the physical gold price set by Asian demand, the specific form of your exposure matters more than it did in a world where there was only one effective gold price. Physical gold, stored in your possession or in a fully allocated vault, is the asset that benefits from a repricing of the gold market toward physical demand. Paper gold is an instrument whose value depends on the continued functioning and credibility of the Western paper market infrastructure. In a world where that infrastructure is being challenged by a serious, government-backed, physical delivery-connected alternative, owning the thing itself rather than the paper claim on it is not just a philosophical preference, it is a strategic distinction. The second action is to consider the silver implication. Because what is happening in Hong Kong is not only a gold story. Silver, which has historically moved in correlation with gold during major monetary repricing events, is in a supply deficit that is, by the published data, more acute than gold's. The industrial demand for silver is growing faster than any new supply can address. The above-ground silver stockpiles available for monetary purposes are at historic lows, and the same geopolitical dynamics that are driving the de-dollarization trend and the central bank gold accumulation are creating conditions in which silver's monetary heritage, its 6,000-year history as a monetary metal, becomes relevant again at the same time as its industrial necessity is creating a structural supply crisis. The Hong Kong gold system is a catalyst for gold, but the conditions it represents, the shift in monetary gravity from west to east, the building of physical delivery-connected infrastructure as an alternative to paper-dominated Western markets, apply to silver as much as to gold, position accordingly. The third action is to extend your time horizon. The Hong Kong system launched in trial operation on July 7th. It is not going to reshape global gold pricing overnight. The LBMA has decades of established counterparty relationships, deep liquidity, and regulatory credibility that cannot be displaced in a single quarter. What Hong Kong represents is the beginning of a multi-year process, the construction of an alternative architecture that will grow in institutional adoption, in trading volume and price influence in ways that will be gradual and then suddenly undeniable. The investor who is positioned for this process, holding physical gold and silver with a time horizon measured in years rather than weeks, is the investor who will capture the full magnitude of what the Hong Kong system's launch represents. The investor who is trying to trade the specific week-to-week price movements of a process that will unfold over years will find the ride too volatile and the timing too uncertain to capture the long-term opportunity cleanly. The fourth action is to deepen your understanding. The Hong Kong system is a specific institutional development in a larger monetary transition story. Understanding it fully, understanding the history of the LBMA, the mechanics of the new HAU price, the significance of the Shanghai Gold Exchange connection, the strategic logic of targeting belt and road central banks, takes more than a single video can provide. But the effort of that understanding is repaid in the quality of conviction it produces. The investor who holds gold because they have heard it is a good investment, is a different investor from the one who holds gold because they understand why the specific events of July 2026 represent a structural inflection point in global gold pricing architecture. The first investor will sell under emotional pressure. The second will hold with the knowledge-based conviction that no short-term price movement can shake. Be the second investor. Let me close with an image that I think captures something essential about the position that every gold and silver investor who understands what happened 4 days ago is in right now. Think about the people who lived in Zurich in the 1940s when the neutral Swiss financial system was being established as an alternative to the war-damaged financial centers of the rest of Europe. They did not know, in the moment, that Zurich was becoming one of the world's great financial centers. They knew that something new was being built, that the architecture of global finance was shifting, that the specific institutions and infrastructure being created in their city had a logic and a purpose that went beyond the local scale of what they could immediately observe. And the people who built relationships with those institutions, who positioned their businesses and their savings in proximity to what was being built, who understood that new financial architecture creates new financial centers of gravity. Those people positioned themselves at the beginning of something that would define global finance for decades. Hong Kong on July 7th, 2026 is the beginning of something, not the completion of it. The trial operation of a clearing system is not the replacement of the LBMA, but it is the founding of the alternative, the laying of the first stones of the infrastructure that, if it succeeds in attracting the institutional participation it is courting, will progressively shift the center of gravity of global gold pricing toward the physical demand of Asia. And the investors who understand what is being built and who position themselves accordingly are in the position of the Zurich residents of the 1940s, who saw that something significant was beginning while most of the world was focused on something else. You are watching this video because you understand that precious metals are more than a commodity investment. You understand that gold and silver are monetary assets whose value is deeply connected to the architecture of the global monetary system. And that changes in that architecture have historically produced some of the most significant precious metals repricing events in human history. What happened 4 days ago in Hong Kong is a change in that architecture. Specific, documented, official. Already producing record trading volumes in Asian gold markets. Already being watched by the institutional investors and central banks who will determine how quickly the new architecture gains the critical mass needed to influence global gold pricing. You have the information, you understand the context, and the specific actions required of a prepared, knowledge-based, long-horizon investor are clear. Hold physical metal, extend your time horizon, deepen your understanding, and let the historic shift in monetary gravity that the Hong Kong system represents work patiently and compoundingly in your favor. The system launched 4 days ago. The story is beginning. Be in it. 3 things before this conversation closes, and I want each of them to carry the weight of what we have built today. One of the most timely and most historically grounded conversations in this entire series. The first is alike. The information in this video, the specific documented real-time event of July 7th and its precise implications for gold and silver pricing, deserves to reach every serious precious metals investor. Your like makes that possible. Give it. The second is a subscription. The Hong Kong gold system is not a single event. It is the beginning of a process that will produce specific, significant, time-sensitive developments in the months ahead. Institutional adoptions, trading volume milestones, price divergences between the HAU and LBMA benchmarks, central bank participation announcements. I will cover each of them with the same analytical depth and the same honest, grounded perspective that this conversation has provided. Subscribe to be the first to have the context when the next chapter of this story unfolds. And the third is a share. Find one person in your life who holds gold or silver, but who has not yet heard about what launched in Hong Kong 4 days ago. Send them this video, not with alarm, with the calm confidence of someone who has done the work of understanding what a significant structural event in global precious metals markets actually means, and who cares enough to share that understanding with the people they trust. The gold system launched, the center of monetary gravity is shifting, and the investor who understands what both of those things mean is the investor who is positioned for the history that has already begun to be made. Be that investor. The story is live, the window is open, and the beginning that most people will not recognize until it has advanced much further is available to you right now, while it is still a beginning.